Good evening. Our top story tonight, the Buffalo Bills are going through a massive facelift as an organization. They cut their starting center, Mitch Morse. They cut their starting safety, Jordan Poyer. Other starting safety, Micah Hyde's a free agent as well, so that's another veteran gone. They cut Tre'Davious White, former starting corner, former All-Pro who's battled injuries in recent years. Cut Saron Neal, a backup corner. Cut Nyheim Hines officially, and cut Deontay Hardy. Plus, they restructure Rasul Douglas and restructure Von Miller. 9 moves made today by the Buffalo Bills, plus a signing on the offensive line. But what does this mean? Is it over for the Buffalo Bills? Has their Super Bowl window shut because of cap issues? We've got that and so much more on Player Profiler today. And so we are back. And like we mentioned, the Buffalo Bills are making moves, and they're not all good moves. They're necessary moves. The Bills started today with over $40 million over the salary cap. The Bills had to shed some serious cap in order to even exist as a franchise. You have to be under the salary cap. That's why it's a salary cap. And so the Bills make moves that aren't going to make the team better. Cutting Mitch Morse, a steady starting center, is not great. It really is not great. I mean, Josh Allen with that offensive line really started to roll towards the end of the season, but they save $8.5 million, and it was a necessary evil for the Buffalo Bills. And so they're going to shift their starting guard. They're going to shift Connor McGovern, not to be confused with the Connor McGovern who's center for the Jets. No, the other Connor McGovern is now going to be a center in the AFC East. So they're going to shift their guard, Connor McGovern, to center. They re-signed David Edwards earlier today to be a starter on that offensive line to replace Mitch Morse and Ryan Bates, who you remember they just traded. The Buffalo Bills sent him for a 5th-round pick to the Chicago Bears, and then they'll keep Osiris Torrance at their other guard position. So one guard stays the same, the tackles stay the same, and then the other two, the guard and the center for the Buffalo Bills, is going to be shuffled in 2024. It's going to be a brand new offensive line for Josh Allen, and it's going to be a brand new defense as well. Jordan Poyer is cut as well. So they save $8.5 million by cutting Mitch Morse. They save $5.7 million by moving on from Jordan Poyer. Jordan Poyer, former All-Pro, former Pro Bowler, has had a hell of a career, and you kind of felt it after the Buffalo Bills lost the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, they do their press conference together. You could just feel it. It was coming. It was time. And it's a massive change. And this is not going to make the Buffalo Bills a better football team. It is going to make them a worse football team, losing both of their starting safeties. That's the reality of it. Cutting Tre'Davious White isn't as much of a negative for the Buffalo Bills. They saved $10.2 million. Tre'Davious White unfortunately tore his Achilles earlier this year after coming off the torn ACL. Our heart goes out to Tre'Davious White. I would love to see him come back and perform at an NFL level. I would just love to see him back in the NFL. But this was a necessary move that doesn't necessarily hurt the Buffalo Bills. Also move on from Saron Neal, who was their backup slot corner. They cut Nyheim Hines as well. That was obviously going to happen after Nyheim Hines tore his ACL in a jet ski accident where he was run into. Credit to the Bills for not using that, because they could have said, hey, you were on a jet ski, you got hurt. Nah, we don't owe you any more guaranteed money. The Bills don't do that. They do the right thing. They keep Nyheim Hines for another year, and now he's moving on. And Deontay Hardy, backup wide receiver slash punt returner slash kick returner, former All-Pro returner for the New Orleans Saints, he is gone as well. So they do all of those cuts, and then they make some moves in the finances as well with Rasul Douglas, $2.5 million they'll save by restructuring his contract. And Von Miller just takes a straight up pay cut to stick with the Buffalo Bills. So Von Miller goes from $17.5 million in salary to $8.8 million in salary. You might be wondering, why would Von Miller do that? He had the leverage. It was going to be really tough to cut Von Miller. But the reason is he can make more money, and Von Miller is betting on himself. In total, he can make $20 million, so he can make more in incentives than he would have for the Buffalo Bills previously. But his base salary drops from $17.5 million to $8.6 million. Oh, sorry, $8.8 million. So that's a massive pay cut for Von Miller. It's a massive cut to the defense and the offensive line. The Bills still don't have very much money. They saved over $25 million today, but they're still $15 million over the cap before the Von Miller and Rasul Douglas deals officially go in. At that point, they'll be about $5 million over the cap. The Bills have no money. They have needs at wide receiver. Gabe Davis is going to leave. Stephon Diggs isn't the alpha that he once was. He needs some help opposite him. I hate to say it, but did the Buffalo Bills miss their window? I mean, as long as they've got Josh Allen, the window's never closed. I do expect the Buffalo Bills to make the playoffs next year because of Josh Allen. But if not, there's going to be some heads rolling. Sean McDermott and potentially Brandon Beane will be on the outside looking in a new regime for Josh Allen to hopefully win a Super Bowl. But what do you think? Do you think that the Buffalo Bills are cooked, that they missed their shot at a Super Bowl? Oh, and by the way, the Buffalo Bills will also be bringing back Mitchell Trubisky in 2024. At least that's what they're working towards, making Mitch Trubisky the backup after flaming out with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let us know. Do you think the Buffalo Bills are done? Did they miss their Super Bowl window? Or are they going to be back in the conversation, losing to Patrick Mahomes once again? Let us know, and we'll be back after this word from the Podfather.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from PlayerProfiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side, prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it. This episode is brought to you by Player Profiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help to strategize where you should take players because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our rookie guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal.
We are back. The Buffalo Bills are in shambles. They are going through a major facelift, but they're not the only ones making moves. The franchise tag deadline was yesterday, and we saw a bunch of players hit with the tag. Brian Burns going to be back with the Carolina Panthers on $24 million salary, which is just embarrassing considering the Rams offered 2 firsts and a second for Brian Burns, and the Panthers turned them down. Now they can't reach a contract. Now they're playing on the franchise tag. Justin Madubuike, the defensive tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, 13 sacks this past season, the most that the Ravens have had in 10 years, I think it was the stat. But Justin Madubuike, big breakout season. He's going to be making over $22 million on the tag. Jalen Johnson Chicago Bears cornerback. He is going to be sticking around with the Bears on the franchise tag. And the Bears also add Ryan Bates, the former Buffalo Bills offensive lineman, in a trade. So now the Bears only have 5 picks. They've got the 1st and 9th overall picks. And then they've got a 3rd rounder and a 4th rounder. Sorry, 2 4th rounders. So the Chicago Bears could add some talent, add some picks if they move back from that 9th overall pick, which could happen because teams are reportedly looking to jump the Vikings at 11 in order to draft JJ McCarthy. Teams are worried that the Vikings, JJ McCarthy's floor is number 11 at the Minnesota Vikings. The reports are they love JJ McCarthy. Now it is smokescreen season, so that could be a lie, but the Bears at 9th overall would be a prime trade back or trade up to that pick position. We also have Michael Pittman hit with the franchise tag, the first time the Colts have used the franchise tag since Pat McAfee back in the day. Career year for Pittman, 1,100 plus yards, 109 receptions as well. Antoine Winfield will be back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Josh Allen will be back with the Jacksonville Jaguars at $24 million. He also had a career year at 17.5 sacks and 33 hits. But like the Buffalo Bills, Jaguars aren't in a good situation cap-wise. In fact, they're pretty down bad. And so with Josh Allen obviously getting the tag, that means they can't tag Calvin Ridley, and they've got to free up some money. So Darius Williams, starting corner for the Jacksonville Jaguars, won a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams, a quality starting corner in the NFL, had the best season of his career with the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2023. And just because Trent Baalke is so bad at managing the cap, he gets cut. They saved $10.5 million through no fault of his own. We also saw Rayshawn Jenkins, starting safety for the Jaguars, cut, and Foley Fatukasi cut a couple days before on his birthday. So the Jaguars waited to make some of these cuts, but no, we got to cut Fatukasi on his birthday because that's the kind of franchise we are. So will Calvin Ridley be back with the Jacksonville Jaguars? At this point, it's looking like he's going to be taking some calls, taking some offers in free agency, and he's going to get paid if he does reach free agency, whether it's by the Jaguars or another team. Calvin Ridley is going to be commanding the big bucks. He's the best wide receiver on the market now, unless you're swinging a trade for T. Higgins. Michael Pittman's not tradable. Mike Evans is back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so Calvin Ridley suddenly becomes the best wide receiver on the market, unless you count T. Higgins. Maybe Hollywood Brown versus Calvin Ridley. Who would you rather have? Either way, we went from a dominant, beautiful wide receiver class in free agency to Darnell Mooney going to be getting a big contract. That's okay. I love Darnell Mooney, but the wide receiver class in the draft is going to make up for it. We also saw L'Jarius Sneed get the franchise tag. We mentioned T. Higgins got the franchise tag, and the Bengals are reportedly going to be cutting Joe Mixon, looking for a new starting running back, and Tyler Boyd, also not expected back with the Cincinnati Bengals, though we are hearing rumors that where he could end up, it's the New York Jets. Apparently the Jets are sniffing around Tyler Boyd, looking to add another wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers, and they're also sniffing around, obviously, David Bakhtiari, but we've known that for quite a while. Aaron Rodgers brought him to Vegas with the rest of the offensive line for the Jets. David Bakhtiari will be a Jet. Sounds like Tyler Boyd might as well. Final tag that we did see was Kyle Duggar, the starting safety for the New England Patriots, but he doesn't get the franchise tag. He gets the transition tag, which is very different. So instead of paying Kyle Duggar over $17 million, he'll make $13.8 million on this one-year deal. But Kyle Duggar is technically a free agent. He can negotiate with other teams. I don't know if he can negotiate now or if he has to wait till free agency kicks off. But either way, Kyle Duggar can negotiate with other teams and sign a contract with another team. But if the Patriots match that contract, then they get their starting safety back. And so this is a gamble saying, hey, we will match what you're going to give our guy, or you can set the market. You can decide what we're going to pay Kyle Duggar. And if you pay him too much, that's okay. We'll move on. And this has only been used 6 times in the last 15 years. Kenyon Drake got the tag for the Arizona Cardinals back in 2020. Kyle Fuller got it for the Chicago Bears, former cornerback, in 2018. Charles Clay, remember that name for the Miami Dolphins, former tight end, got the transition tag in 2015. Alex Mack got the tag from Cleveland in 2014, and Jason Worlds, the former Pittsburgh Steelers edge rusher, got it in 2014 as well. Speaking of the Patriots, though, with Kyle Duggar getting the transition tag, this means Michael Onwenu, the starting right guard / starting right tackle, bounces around that offensive line for the New England Patriots. He is expected to leave. Onwenu is going to be his own agent. Big Mike is going to be negotiating with teams himself, but is not expected to be back with the New England Patriots. We know Mike Evans isn't going to be joining the New England Patriots. Obviously, he just signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it sounds like Mike Evans wasn't interested in coming to New England. And Baker Mayfield is not interested in coming to New England. And Jaden Daniels is not interested in coming to New England. That one is false. The rumor was Jaden Daniels and his family didn't want to be in the cold of New England. And then Jaden Daniels comes out and says on Twitter, that is cap. But Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield sounds like they don't want to play for the New England Patriots. And we've got some other moves coming up as well. Christian Wilkins did not receive the franchise tag. Going to be one of the top free agents available. Defensive tackle for the Miami Dolphins. Dominant run stuffer, coming off a 9-sack season. Christian Wilkins, he's going to get paid, but he's still going to be of value, if that makes sense, to whoever ends up signing him. The Dolphins also cut Jerome Baker and Keon Crossan, starting linebacker and starting cornerback for the Miami Dolphins. And Jonnu Smith is visiting Miami, looking to sign a contract. That would be a perfect fit. We all remember Mike Gesicki wasn't getting played because he's not a blocker. And then Durham Smythe got way too many snaps for the Dolphins the last couple of years. Jonnu Smith at least can come in. We know he's fantasy relevant. He's not going to get a ton of targets, but we saw what he can do with 4 receptions this past season. Jonnu Smith outproducing Kyle Pitts at times. But none of the running backs got the franchise tag this offseason. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, they're all going to be free agents. So is Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift. It is going to be a beautiful running back class. But it's starting to sound like Tony Pollard may return to the Dallas Cowboys. He is interested in staying in Dallas, even going as far to start rumors that Tony Pollard might take less money to stay with the Dallas Cowboys. That's how much he loves it in Texas. Speaking of Texas, the Houston Texans re-signed Dalton Schultz. He gets a 3-year extension, $36 million for Dalton Schultz. That's $12 million per year, $23.5 million guaranteed. Congrats, Dalton Schultz. Good decision by the Houston Texans. They've got the money to spend. They've got draft picks as well, even after trading up with the Arizona Cardinals. They don't have a first, but they've still got draft picks. They've got money to spend. Texans are in a great situation. Texans also re-signed kicker Ka'imi Fairbairn. He gets a 3-year deal as well. Now the highest paid kicker per year in the NFL at $15.9 million. About just over $5 million per year over those 3 years of the contract. We also saw the Lions bring back Emmanuel Moseley on a 1-year deal. Emmanuel Moseley, former starting cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers, comes to Detroit after tearing his ACL with the 49ers. Then on his second snap with the Lions, tears his other ACL. He's going to be back on a 1-year deal. We know the Lions are looking to be aggressive when filling the cornerback position opposite Cam Sutton. And one guy who's not going to be in the competition for that is Jerry Jacobs, former starter, undrafted, free agent out of Arkansas Pine Bluff, becomes a starter for the Detroit Lions, gets benched down the stretch, gets hurt, ends the season on injured reserve, and now he will not be back with the Detroit Lions, which is a shame, a damn shame, but I'm sure he'll land on his feet somewhere. We mentioned the Tony Pollard rumors that he wants to stick with the Dallas Cowboys, a player that wants to stick with the Dallas Cowboys, but it's kind of being a little bit disrespected almost. So Micah Parsons tagged as a defensive end, not a linebacker, which is crazy that defensive ends on the franchise tag, or sorry, this isn't the franchise tag. This is the 5th-year option, but the 5th-year option for Micah Parsons, he's going to be tagged as a defensive end, which makes about $3 million less than the than the linebacker does, which is wild. I don't understand how that works, but the outside linebacker versus defensive end tag is what does it. TJ Watt is an outside linebacker contributing to that number. It's stupid, but it's kind of disrespectful to Micah Parsons. But at this point, it's probably not going to matter anyways because he's going to sign a new deal and he's never going to play on that 5th-year option anyways. Jets trying to buy a Super Bowl. They cannot even make the playoffs. Jets are trying to buy the Super Bowl. Could this be the year to make the playoffs, though, with the Bills taking a step back? The Miami Dolphins are in even worse shape than the Buffalo Bills when it comes to the salary cap. Could be rough, and the Jets could capitalize. You're reading off a paper of some or you know your stuff. Well, I've got the show notes in the background, but basically all that is I've got the player's name, and that just triggers the memory of what the story is. And so I've got a couple notes there in bullet point form. But for the most part, this is just off the top of the dome with just me looking at what the player's name is that we've got to be talking about. The next player we're going to be talking about is Joe Flacco, who does want to return to the Cleveland Browns, but also wants a chance to play. And so that's kind of the dichotomy there is I'm not going to play with the Cleveland Browns because Deshaun Watson isn't going to be benched for Joe Flacco, but he really likes it in Cleveland. So will Joe Flacco return or will he go somewhere else where with a shot at playing? Is Parsons a linebacker? Yeah, he is. He does still play off-ball linebacker. In reality, they're all edge players, defensive ends and outside linebackers. They should all be called edges. It shouldn't matter, but it's frustrating. But yes, Micah Parsons is a linebacker getting tagged as a defensive end for less money. Does that mean there's no interest in Pollard? Not necessarily. This is just rumors that we're hearing. I imagine there's some interest in Tony Pollard, but maybe not the interest he's hoping to get. Maybe he knows that it's a competitive class, and if I can just stick in Dallas, stick with what I know. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's no interest in Tony Pollard, but yeah, maybe not the greatest sign now that you got me thinking about that. Happy to have you on the show, Anthony. Always a pleasure when you can tune in live. Excited to watch Brad Holmes navigate from late in the draft. Love, love, love Brad Holmes and what the Detroit Lions are doing. Don't love some of these cuts. Some of them are upsetting, including Hayden Hurst, where the Panthers are pretty much just losing money. I think they save $1.85 million to cut Hayden Hurst, and they take on $9.8 million in dead money. Hayden Hurst ended the season, couldn't return to the field with concussion issues, post-concussion issues for Hayden Hurst. They don't even save any money. This was just a bad decision to sign Hayden Hurst in the first place, sign Miles Sanders, who's now a backup. So two of the big signings for the Panthers last year, Hurst now cut, and Miles Sanders now a backup to Chuba Hubbard, which is just brutal. The Panthers are in rough shape. We will see if Dave Canales can right that ship. I sure hope so. Just going to have to do it without a first round pick or a great wide receiver to speak of. Jets move on from CJ Uzomah. That saves the Jets about $5 million. Only 8 receptions and a touchdown for CJ Uzomah in 2023. More of an extra offensive tackle, just a big blocker on the offensive line, playing tight end. So the Jets now have $25 million in cap. We already mentioned they're looking at Tyler Boyd. They're looking at David Bakhtiari as well. Like White on the Bills. That's so sad. Yeah, just a lot of sucky cuts. You know, it just sucks. It sucks to see people lose their jobs, period. But it sucks to see people lose their jobs coming off of injury. Jamal Adams is going to be looking for a new team. The Seattle Seahawks move on from their former starting safety, who wasn't a starter in 2023. He ended up being a healthy scratch towards the end of the season. But they do cut a former starting safety for the whole season of 2023. And that's Quandre Diggs, the big name free agent from the Detroit Lions a couple years ago, has spent a lot of years with the Seahawks, got 2 contracts with the Seahawks, and now he's going to be a free agent as well. Moving on from the 2 safeties, frees up over $27 million in cap space. They also cut Will Dissly, their backup tight end, who was kind of a part-time starter with Noah Fant. Now Colby Parkinson going to be the starting tight end for the Seattle Seahawks, it's looking like, unless they bring back Noah Fant. But cutting Will Dissly saves $7 million, and they cut Brian Moan, defensive tackle, as well. And that saves $5 million. So lots of cuts for the Seattle Seahawks. Cut for the Chargers, they move on from Eric Kendricks, and the Eagles move on from Avonte Maddox. It's just a lot of cuts, and it sucks. Jack, are you going to the draft with the rest of the game? I sure am. I will be back at the draft. I'm only about an hour plus, probably hour and a half, hour 20, or hour 45 away from Detroit. So I'll be driving down, and I cannot wait to see all of my friends once again. Going to be a beautiful, beautiful time. Make sure you tune into the draft extravaganza. It is going to be magnificent. And speaking of the draft, the Washington Commanders are reportedly turning down offers for that second overall pick, which means they're taking a quarterback because Caleb Williams is going to the Chicago Bears at 1. Bears aren't trading back. We theorize maybe the Commanders trade up for Caleb Williams, reunite him with Cliff Kingsbury. Not going to be the case, but doesn't look like the Commanders will be trading back either. They will be drafting their QB of the future, whether it's Drake May, whether it's Jaden Daniels, whether it's JJ McCarthy. Probably not JJ McCarthy, but it could be. Speaking of the Washington Commanders, though, they also signed Zach Ertz, a little reunion with Cliff Kingsbury here, who we spent a lot of years with the Arizona Cardinals after being traded from the Eagles. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Love to see Zach Ertz back in the league. I don't know why I said it was beautiful. Maybe I'm just distracted by Cliff Kingsbury, but either way, JJ McCarthy, second overall pick, Cliff Kingsbury? Nah, probably not going to happen. But we could see other quarterbacks on the move as well. Kirk Cousins really starting to sound like he's going to head to the Atlanta Falcons, which is probably fueled by the rumors that the Vikings love JJ McCarthy. And Kirk Cousins' wife is from Atlanta. And there's reports that his wife and his kids are looking at schools in Atlanta. And there's reports that Kyle Pitts has already got the call from Kirk Cousins. Hey, what's it going to take for me to get number 8 off of you? Now, that one, Kyle Pitts says is a lie. Kyle Pitts has not talked to Kirk Cousins yet about the number 8. But it sounds like the rest might be true. Kirk Cousins to Atlanta. Starting to seem like the most likely option. Vikings looking for a new quarterback. Falcons will have that number 8 overall pick to draft, probably an edge defender, maybe another. Imagine they draft another wide receiver, another skill position. We can have 3 first rounders on the offense with, no, it'd be 4. It could be Drake London. Let's say Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, whoever, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts. That would be 4 first rounders in the skill positions for the Atlanta Falcons. If it happens, we'll see if it happens. We'll also see who the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos is in 2024. Jarrett Stidham is next in line as of this moment, with Russell Wilson being cut next week. They haven't officially cut Russell Wilson yet. They're going to cut him on the first day of the league year because that's when June 1st cuts can happen. So they're going to push that money into the future as well. But the Broncos are doing the right thing. They're saying, hey, Russ, we're going to cut you next week. We know you can't negotiate with teams to sign as a free agent until we actually cut you, but we're just going to waive that. We're finally, we as the Denver Broncos are finally going to do right by Russell Wilson and at least allow him to negotiate before we cut him. So good on the Denver Broncos finally doing something right by Russell Wilson. Final piece of news of the day, some news that got me very, very excited. Bill Belichick, where is his next team going to be? Don't forget your fishing pole. Sounds like I got to bring my fishing pole to the draft, or they might be supplied. They might be supplied there as well. But either way, Bill Belichick looking for a new team, and that team as of this moment could be Team Manning. Peyton Manning has picked up the phone. He's calling Bill Belichick saying, hey, sign with me. Sign with Omaha Productions. Yeah, I know you're talking to CBS, NBC. Sign with me, and we will get the Manning cast, but make it Belichick and Nick Saban. Can you imagine if we got to see Peyton Manning, Bill Belichick, and Nick Saban every single week sitting down to talk football? You can't beat that. You can't beat that, and I so hope it happens.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.